Forgiveness. How do you get there? How do you get to the point where you can forgive and love the people who harmed you the most? That is the focus of my next set of videos in healing past trauma and abuse through Christ. And this is a topic that is really difficult, and it was very, very hard for me, and I am not going to rush through it. So I'm going to make sure that I take my time. I'm going to probably have 3 or 4 videos about this topic, and I don't want to have them too long. So they're going to be shorter videos, 5 to 7 minutes probably max. But I do want to let you know that it is possible. It's possible to forgive the person that hurt you the most, and it's so freeing once you get there. It's so freeing. So this is going to be an introduction to working through forgiveness of the people who harmed you the most in your life. And it's just going to be an introduction. I'm not going to go into any great detail about how I did it or my first starting steps. I want to give you a little bit of context. And I said when I started this series that I did not want to focus on the sin. I wanted to focus on God, and that holds true. So I'm not going to be giving details. I'm just going to give you a couple of glimpses into my past to show you how very broken I was when God chased me down and grabbed me. And I think that he does that. He chases us down. He's not going to let us go. So let me just start by saying, I've already talked a little bit about how I was 4 or 5 years old when the abuse began, and how I had told a couple of adult family members about the abuse and nobody had done anything. The one person that I told that I really was hopeful was my mother. I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was laying in bed one night, and I finally just broke. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I gotta stop this. So I just told her, I'm like, this is what's happening. And I gave her details, details that no 6 or 7-year-old would have unless they had seen it or experienced it. And either one of those things should have been red flags for an adult speaking to a 6 or 7-year-old child. So I told her what was happening. I told her that I didn't like it. I told her that it hurt. I told her that I wanted it to stop. And she just kind of looked at me for a really long time. And then she said she would be back, and she left. And I don't know how long she was gone because I was just a little kid. But, I'm sure it wasn't very long because I was still awake, right? So probably if it had been longer than an hour or two, I would have fallen asleep. But she came back in and she said, well, I hope you're happy. You have made your father cry. And that was not the reaction that I was hoping for. And my world shattered. It absolutely shattered at that moment, because there was kind of a gamble. And I'm not a 6-year-old strategist. I was not a 7-year-old strategist. I was not working the odds to see, if I tell her, is she going to help me? Because if she doesn't help me, it's probably just going to be worse for me. And I didn't think all of that through in my mind. And she didn't help me, and it absolutely got worse. My father now knew he had free license to do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. And he did that night, that very night, the same night that I told my mother what was happening. She left, and I was still awake when he came back in, so not too much time had passed, and he did it again. And that was probably the first real crushing thing that happened with my mother. Oddly enough, it was harder for me to forgive her than it was for me to forgive my father. And I'm going to get into that later. But the second thing that really kind of destroyed me was, my father was an over-the-road truck driver. And he would be gone for several days. Thank you, Jesus, for that. He would go several days at a time, sometimes a week. And he would come back, and, we were not around him every day. That was a blessing. But when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, my mother pulled me out of school for a couple of days and sent me by myself with him on a trip to Little Rock, Arkansas. What was I going to do? I'm in a truck. And he had a sleeper. He had a truck with a sleeper, a bed in the back. And, I just kind of pressed myself as far against the door as I could while we were driving. And then, he pulls into a truck stop. And I assume we're in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's where we were going, and then we got there, and then we stopped, so my assumption is it was somewhere in Little Rock, Arkansas. And it was getting dark. And he says, okay, let's go to bed. So we go back into the sleeper, and he starts to mess around with me, and something inside me just snapped. It just broke. And I just screamed at him, and I just shoved him away from me, and I ran. and I don't know where I'm going. I'm in some truck stop. It's nighttime. I'm single digit age. And I just ran, and I looked around and I saw the truck stop, and I ran into the inside of the truck stop, and I went to the one place that I didn't think he could follow me, and that was the women's restroom. And this was a truck stop. It was dirty. It was not clean. I went in and I sat on the floor in one of the stalls, and I stayed there for hours. For hours I sat there. Every time the door would open, I would cringe. And then it, wasn't him. Somebody else. Wasn't him. It was somebody else. But I knew I have to walk out of this bathroom. My hope was that he had left. My irrational hope was that he had left. But I know now he wouldn't have left. So I did. I finally got the courage to leave that bathroom. And when I walked out, the sun was coming up. And my dad was sitting at the counter drinking coffee. Like nothing had happened. And I just I had to walk over to him. And, he's like, "Are you ready to go now? Are you done?" And I just kind of nodded my head. And we left. And I lost everything with those two actions. And I say that just so that you understand how defeated and broken I was in all of this stuff, everything that happened to me. And God chased me down, and God shook me around, and God said, "You matter. You can be whole again, and I'm going to make you whole." And not only that, not only did he make me whole, he helped me to forgive the woman that betrayed me, that sold me out to this man to do whatever he wanted to do with me. I forgave her, and I love her, and I wish good things for her. And that doesn't mean that I welcome her into my life, but that is a really freeing thing, to be able to let go of that anger and that bitterness and that rage and that grief, because you've lost something. I lost so much as a child, and God gave it all back to me. Everything I lost, he gave back to me, and he gave it back to me in spades. So this next series that I'm going to be doing on forgiveness, it's really important. It's really important. And I gave you a little bit of what happened to me just so that you could see that there is nothing that has happened to you that God cannot heal you from. All right? He can get you through it, and he will get you through it. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard. All right? It's not easy. It is exhausting. It is a long process, and it is painful. And there are days where you're going to just throw your hands up and be like, "I can't do it, God." And that's okay, because he knows you can't do it. So he's going to be there with you, helping you to do it. And that's the thing, you're not doing it alone. If you're trying to do it alone, you're going to fail. But you have God. And, I'm going to talk a lot about the forgiveness, the stages that I had to go through. But for this first video, into the forgiveness stage, I just really wanted to kind of tell you that it doesn't matter what's happened to you. And yes, abuse turns you into the type of person that is easily discounted. You are erratic. You are emotional. You don't know how to behave. You build yourself this wall around yourself, and nobody's getting in, and you're combative and you're negative. And the very abuse that you're trying to protect yourself from is the thing that turns you into the thing that people will discount you for. They're not going to believe what you say because of the type of person you are, and you're the type of person you are because of the abuse. So it's this cycle, right? It's really vicious. And I'm going to talk more in the next video about the why. Everybody wants to know why. Why did it happen? Why did this guy do this to me? Why did this woman do this to me? Why did God let it happen? Well, that's a whole topic for another day. But for now, I just wanted to give you that introduction and let you know that as soon as I can, I'm going to continue with this video series, and I'm going to try to do one a week. So if I can do another one this week, I will, because this is such an important topic. But if I can't, it'll be next week for sure. I'm going to be praying for you guys. Remember, you've got to forgive. You have got to forgive. You got to get rid of the bitterness. You got to get rid of the anger, and you've got to forgive people as Christ has forgiven you. And it's going to be so freeing when you do. I'm going to be praying for you. God bless you.